I was sitting in my recliner, staring at the Christmas lights blinking across the living room window, when I heard her whisper. It was December 22nd in Tampa Bay, the air thick with salt and the faint hum of the ocean. The tree beside me shimmered softly, ornaments reflecting the glow of the fireplace. I sat perfectly still, pretending to be half asleep, the way she liked me, quiet, compliant, fading. "After Christmas," Monica whispered from the kitchen doorway, her voice low but sharp. "Clearwater Memory Care has a room ready. We'll move him there before the new year." My son Ethan hesitated. "Are you sure about this?" "Look at him," Monica hissed. "He drools. He forgets where he is. The pills work perfectly. Once he's declared incompetent, we get power of attorney, and the house is ours. $1 million, free and clear." I kept my eyes closed, my breathing shallow. Every word she said slid into me like a blade. For 18 months I had played the fool, letting her believe her drugs were working, pretending the coffee still made me dizzy and dull. I learned to keep my head tilted just enough to let the cup touch my lips without swallowing. And when she smiled, that saccharine caregiver smile, I smiled back, knowing exactly what hid behind it. She had no idea that for weeks I'd been pouring her coffee into a dying fern behind my chair, or that I had 3 mason jars filled with samples hidden in the study closet, each labeled with dates. No idea that every whisper, every cruel word, was being recorded by a small device in my cardigan pocket. I'd taught history for 40 years before retiring. I'd studied men who tried to rewrite reality through lies. I knew the pattern of tyranny. When I saw it, it always started with isolation, followed by confusion, then control. And that's exactly what Monica had done. I used to think grief had made me paranoid after Helen passed. My wife of 47 years. The way she'd smile when she baked lemon pie on Sundays, the smell of her shampoo on the pillow beside me, it all vanished too quickly. When Monica began showing up with casseroles and helpful routines, I thought maybe it was God sending me comfort. I was wrong. God had nothing to do with this. Ethan believed she was helping. Everyone did. "Dad, she's looking out for you," he'd say, resting a hand on my shoulder. But he didn't see the way she watched me, timing my breathing, adjusting the dosage, waiting for the fog to roll in. And it had rolled in, thick and heavy, like the coastal fog that swallowed the bay on winter mornings. I'd lost days, sometimes weeks, couldn't finish a crossword, couldn't drive. I thought it was grief. Then one morning, I spilled my coffee by accident, and for the first time in months, my mind cleared. The next day I skipped it on purpose. The fog lifted again. That's when I knew. Now, sitting there pretending to be half-conscious, I heard her plans unfold like a well-rehearsed play. "Once he's in the facility, they'll handle everything," she continued. "He'll sign whatever I put in front of him. We sell the house, we move to Miami. Ethan, this is our chance to start fresh." My son's voice trembled. "But he's my father, Monica. This feels wrong." Her tone softened, coaxing. "You think he'd even notice? He doesn't remember what day it is. The doctor said the decline is accelerating. It's cruel to keep him home." I wanted to stand up and scream. I remember everything. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I let my hand tremble slightly on the armrest. Eyes half-lidded, mouth slack. A performance. The greatest one of my life. They thought I was a ghost, fading slowly out of their way. But ghosts have a way of haunting the living. When Ethan left the room, Monica came closer, kneeling beside me with that syrupy tone she used when she wanted something. "You'll be safe soon, Dad," she murmured, brushing a hand across my arm. Her perfume, sweet jasmine and rot, made my stomach turn. No more confusion, no more stress. I forced a small smile, muttered, "Thank you," and watched her eyes glint with satisfaction. She walked away humming Silent Night. The melody lingered even after she left, curling around me like smoke. I stared at the reflection in the dark TV screen, the faint outline of an old man everyone thought was dying. But they had forgotten one thing. I was still thinking. I reached for the envelope tucked under the seat cushion. Inside were copies of the toxicology results I'd received 2 days earlier, signed by Dr. Emily Cruz. Levels of zolpidem and clonazepam consistent with deliberate sedation, Evidence. Hard as stone. The clock on the mantel ticked toward midnight. I leaned back, letting the sound fill the silence. Monica thought I was powerless, that she could bury me alive under medical lies and legal papers. But she had made one fatal mistake. She underestimated the patience of an old man with nothing left to lose. As the firelight flickered against the walls, I whispered to the empty room, "After Christmas, Monica, you'll get exactly what you deserve." And I closed my eyes, smiling in the dark, because the storm hadn't even started yet. It started the week after Helen's funeral. The house was too quiet then, the kind of silence that hums inside your bones. The smell of lilies still clung to the curtains, and her robe hung on the back of the bedroom door, untouched. People kept telling me to keep busy, but I didn't know what that meant when half your soul was gone. That's when Monica began showing up every morning. "You shouldn't be alone so much, Dad," she'd say, using that easy charm that made everyone trust her. She'd bring coffee in a white mug Helen once used for tea, add 2 spoons of sugar, and smile like she was saving me from myself. "Drink up. You need your strength." For a while, it felt comforting. Ethan was back at work, Lila was busy with school, and Monica filled the space Helen left behind. She cleaned, organized bills, cooked dinner, even handled the mail. I told everyone how lucky I was to have such a caring daughter-in-law. By April, something began to change. It started with the mornings. Around 10, after finishing my special coffee, I'd feel my thoughts slipping sideways, like I was watching my life through fogged glass. I'd lose track of what I was reading, forget why I'd walked into a room, or wake up from naps I didn't remember falling into. "Grief does strange things to the brain," Monica told Ethan one night, her voice carrying just enough concern to sound genuine. "He's getting worse every week." I wasn't supposed to hear that, but I did. By May, my speech had started stuttering. I'd search for words mid-sentence and feel them dissolve before reaching my tongue. At family dinners, I'd watch their faces twist with pity when I said something odd. Monica would touch my arm, sigh softly, and whisper, "It's okay, Dad. We all have bad days." Once, she took my hand at the table. "You don't need to worry about bills anymore. I can handle everything." I was too tired to argue. June brought the first incident. Monica told Ethan I'd forgotten to turn off the stove, that she found smoke filling the kitchen when she came home. I remembered that day perfectly. The burner had never been lit. But when Ethan asked, I couldn't recall how long I'd been sitting at the counter, or if I'd actually cooked something. My thoughts were scrambled. "Maybe you should stop driving for a while," he said gently. The next week, my car keys disappeared. Then my checkbook. Then the combination to my safe. Each time I asked, Monica smiled sadly and said, "You must have misplaced them, Dad. Don't worry, I'll keep track of things for you." By July, the fog was constant. I'd wake up on the couch instead of my bed, my glasses missing, the TV playing news from hours earlier. Sometimes, I'd find small bruises on my arm, faint purple ovals I couldn't explain. "You tripped again," Monica said once, shaking her head. "You have to be more careful." I didn't remember falling. She started coming to doctor appointments, answering questions for me before I could speak. "He's been so forgetful lately," she'd tell Dr. Keller. "Sometimes he doesn't even remember to eat." The doctor smiled sympathetically, scribbled notes, and prescribed something to help with sleep. I never took those pills. I didn't need to. My coffee already knocked me out every morning. In August, the neighbors began looking at me differently. Mrs. Garland from next door stopped waving when I checked the mail. When I asked her about it weeks later, she said softly, "I'm so sorry, Richard. It must be hard living with memory loss." Memory loss. That's what they thought I had. That's what Monica wanted them to believe. I tried to call my brother, Robert, in Miami, to tell him something wasn't right, but halfway through the conversation, my tongue went heavy, words slurring into nonsense. He hung up, thinking I'd been drinking. By September, I barely left the house. Monica started saying crowds overwhelmed me, that social visits made me agitated. She canceled my poker nights, told the book club I couldn't read anymore. She even told the mail carrier I was under medical supervision. It was like watching someone erase me in slow motion. The worst part wasn't the drugs. It was the disbelief. The way Ethan looked at me now, gentle, careful, like I was made of glass. He believed her stories. Every one of them. One night, he stopped by after work. I tried to tell him something was wrong with the coffee, but the words wouldn't come out right. She puts it in there, I stammered, my mouth dry. Puts what, Dad? The sleep in cup. He frowned, worried. You've had another episode, haven't you? I'll talk to Dr. Keller about adjusting your meds. I wanted to scream, but the sound never came. After he left, I sat in the dark living room, staring at Helen's old piano in the corner. The lid was dusty, untouched since the funeral. I remembered how she'd sit there on Christmas mornings, playing Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas while I made breakfast. Now the only music in the house was Monica's humming as she ground her pills into powder. I don't know why that sound broke me more than anything else. Maybe because it was cheerful, almost tender. That night, I prayed for clarity for 1 hour of real thought, free of the fog. God must have heard me, because 2 days later, I spilled my coffee, and for the first time in months, the fog didn't come back. I looked down at the floor, at the dark stain spreading across the tiles, and whispered to the empty kitchen, "It's not grief. It was poison." And I was finally awake. For the first time in nearly a year, my thoughts were sharp again. Every color seemed brighter, every sound clearer, but with that clarity came terror, because I realized how deep Monica's web had already spread. The morning after I spilled the coffee, I faked exhaustion and asked Monica to brew another cup. I watched from the hallway mirror as she reached into her purse, shook something into her palm, and crushed it with the back of a spoon before stirring it into my mug. Then she smiled that angelic smile and called, "Coffee's ready, Dad." I took the cup, sipped enough to wet my lips, and pretended to yawn. "I'll take it in the study," I said. When she turned away, I poured half of it into a mason jar I'd washed and labeled with masking tape. On the lid, I wrote the date in shaky pen, October 9, Sample 1. That same week, I started keeping a small notebook hidden in Helen's sewing basket. Each page carried times, conversations, doses, symptoms. 10:15 a.m., brain fog. 11:30 a.m., slurred speech. Monica home all morning. It read like the diary of a dying man, but it was the beginning of her downfall. By the second week of October, my financial confusion began making sense too. I logged into my online banking, something I hadn't done in months, and found withdrawals I couldn't explain. Thousands gone. My pension payments, which should have kept me comfortable, were disappearing the same day they arrived. Rent payments, utilities, online transfers to MH Care Solutions. I had never heard of that company. Later, I found the initials MH stamped on envelopes Monica collected from the mail. Her full name, Monica Harper. The pattern was too perfect to be coincidence. She'd set up a fake care company using her initials and funneled my money straight to herself. One evening, while Ethan was at work, Monica brought me another stack of bills. "You forgot to pay these again," she said, waving the envelopes. I looked at her, trying to keep my face blank. "I forgot?" She nodded, almost kindly. "You did, Dad. Don't worry. I'll take care of it." She pulled my checkbook from her bag, already flipped open to a page where she'd written the date and amount. All I had to do was sign. My hand trembled, but not from weakness. I forced a shaky signature, then smiled faintly. "You're a blessing, Monica." Her eyes softened. "I just want what's best for you." She didn't see me tear off the carbon copy from the back of the checkbook when she wasn't looking. The payee line read, MH Care Solutions. Amount $3,400. The walls of my home were no longer mine. My phone had been replaced for convenience. My car keys vanished. Even the mail came straight to her. I couldn't risk confronting her outright. She'd call it another episode, and Ethan would believe her. So I played the part of the forgetful old man, letting her think she was winning. By late October, she started controlling my social life. My old friend Don from the veterans group stopped calling. I later learned Monica told him I'd been too confused to hold a conversation. She told the neighbors I'd developed early dementia and didn't recognize faces anymore. At the pharmacy, the clerk stopped greeting me by name. "Your daughter-in-law already picked up your medication, Mr. Halston," he said. "Same as last month." Medication I never ordered. That night, when she went to her book club, I searched her purse. I found small orange pill bottles labeled Zolpidem and clonazepam, both prescribed under my name. My heart stopped. She'd forged my signature on the refill slips. The same signature she practiced every time she paid herself another check. But the cruelest discovery came tucked into a folded piece of paper between her lipsticks. A brochure for Clearwater Memory Care. The same place she mentioned in the kitchen that night I overheard her whisper. On the back, handwritten in blue ink. January 5. Admission confirmed. Deposit paid. Room 214. Reserved for R. Halston. The air went cold. She had already committed me, on paper. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror that night. My face looked hollow, but my eyes were alive again. "You picked the wrong man to bury, Monica," I whispered. The next morning she asked, "You look better today, Dad. Feeling clearer?" I smiled faintly. "Maybe it's the coffee." She laughed, not knowing I'd started dumping every drop into the fern by the window. It was almost dead now, its leaves brown from weeks of poison. Just like me, I thought, except I was coming back to life. By November, I'd gathered 3 more mason jars of coffee samples. The fern had withered to a crisp, but I kept watering it anyway, to hide the evidence. Meanwhile, the rumors she'd planted were blooming like weeds. People began crossing the street when they saw me walking outside. One neighbor even offered condolences for your condition. That Sunday, I caught Monica speaking softly to Ethan on the porch. "He's getting worse," she said. "He nearly set the kitchen on fire again." I pressed my ear to the wall. "Maybe he just forgot," Ethan replied. "He's been through a lot." "I'm trying to protect him, Ethan," she insisted. "But we need to make legal arrangements before it's too late." Legal arrangements. Power of attorney. The last chain to lock around my life. I sat at my desk that night and wrote one line across a fresh page. "If they want a performance, I'll give them one they'll never forget." Then I took out my late wife's old fountain pen, the one she used to grade her students' essays, and began outlining a plan that would expose them both. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to scream or fight. I was going to let them talk. And every word they said would be the rope that hanged them. The morning that changed everything began with a lie. I called out from the study, "Monica, I think I spilled my coffee again." She hurried in, smiling patiently, napkin in hand. "Oh, Dad, you're so clumsy these days," she said, crouching to wipe the carpet. I watched her fingers steady, practiced cleaning away the same poison she'd fed me for nearly a year. That was when I knew I needed proof. Not suspicions, not scribbled notes, but evidence solid enough to survive her gaslighting. That afternoon, when she went grocery shopping, I took her laptop from the kitchen counter. Password protected, of course. But she'd used the same one on my online bank account, our old family dog's name, Buster84. Within seconds, her world opened in front of me. Emails with a man named Dr. Keller, subject lines like "Progress Report" and "Next Evaluation." I clicked one. "Patient continues to show signs of confusion and paranoia. Recommend full mental competency hearing by January. Once we have the medical documentation, family can proceed with institutional care." Below it, Monica had replied, "Perfect. I'll handle the paperwork. Once he's admitted, I'll take care of power of attorney. Thank you for your discretion." I stared at the screen until my hands started shaking. She'd been planning every step. Keller wasn't a doctor helping me, he was part of her scheme. I printed the emails, folded them carefully, and hid them inside Helen's recipe box behind the kitchen books. Then I drove to Clearwater. I needed someone who still knew me as me. Dr. Emily Cruz opened the door herself. She had been Helen's best friend, a retired neurologist who still volunteered twice a week at a local clinic. When she saw me, her face softened with concern. "Richard, my God, you look pale. Are you all right?" "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I need your help. In her quiet home office, I told her everything from the morning fogs to the forged prescriptions, the missing pension money, and the coffee that turned my mind to static. Emily listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said only, "Roll up your sleeve." She drew blood herself, labeling 3 vials. "If you're right," she said, "these tests will show it." Then she sat across from me with a clipboard. "Now, I want you to do a few exercises for me. Memory recall, pattern recognition, basic logic." I remembered every word, every sequence, every pattern. When she finished, she looked up, eyebrows raised. "Your cognition is perfectly normal, Richard. Whatever's happening, it's not dementia." I exhaled for the first time in months. "Then it's real. She's been drugging me." Emily nodded grimly. "Once we get the toxicology report, you'll have hard proof. But you need to be careful. Don't confront her yet. Let her think she's winning." That night, I lay awake listening to the waves crash against the seawall outside. I remembered Helen's words the night before she died. "Promise me you won't let loneliness make you blind, Richard." I had broken that promise. But I was going to make it right. The next day, I drove to Suncoast Electronics and bought a Nest mini camera shaped like a small clock and a voice recorder that fit in my palm. The cashier asked if it was for my grandkids. "Something like that," I said. By the time Monica came home, both devices were installed. The camera sat on the kitchen shelf disguised as decor, angled toward the coffee maker. The recorder lived in my cardigan pocket, always on. For days, I played the part tired, confused, compliant. Monica, convinced of her control, grew bolder. December 3rd, 8:42 a.m. The footage showed her opening my pill bottle, crushing 2 tablets with the back of a spoon, and stirring them into my mug. December 4th, 8:48 a.m. Same motion, same ritual smile. December 5th, 9:02 a.m. She paused to answer a call. I heard her say, "Once he's committed, everything transfers automatically." I labeled each clip and backed it up to a cloud drive. Every night, after she went to bed, I'd sit in the dark study watching those videos, forcing myself to stay calm. Rage only ruins precision. 3 days later, Dr. Cruz called. "Richard, I've got the results. Your blood shows high, sustained levels of zolpidem and clonazepam sleep and anxiety medications. You've been dosed for months. Enough to impair judgment, but not enough to kill." So she wanted me confused, not dead. Exactly. She needed you alive long enough to sign papers. That night, I poured a glass of water and toasted Helen's portrait on the mantel. "She wants a signature," I murmured. "She'll get one on her own arrest warrant." The next morning, I visited attorney Laura Bishop, a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 40s, known for handling elder abuse cases. I handed her the printed emails, copies of the lab report, and the video footage. "Jesus," she muttered, scrolling through the clips. "This is textbook coercion and attempted fraud. You're sitting on a criminal case, Mr. Halston." "I don't want sympathy," I said. "I want protection. And I want her caught red-handed." Laura slid her glasses up her nose. "Then don't stop drinking the coffee." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "She needs to believe it's still working. Keep pretending. We'll set the trap when she tries to get the court order. Just tell me when she schedules the evaluation." That night, as Monica dropped my nightly pill into my hand, I asked, "Who's the doctor tomorrow?" "Dr. Keller," she said brightly. "He'll help us get you settled somewhere safe." "Safe," I repeated, smiling faintly. "That sounds nice." She kissed the top of my head like I was a child. "You'll thank me someday." When she left the room, I opened my palm and stared at the pill glistening in the light. I didn't swallow it. Instead, I placed it beside the mason jars in my closet next to the hard drive, the recordings, and the stack of documents that would destroy her. The evidence of my resurrection. By December 10th, the plan was complete. Monica thought she had a puppet, but I'd cut the strings. And when the time came when she thought she'd finally won, I'd be the one pulling the curtain. She'd built her empire on lies. Now, I was going to make her choke on every one of them. By the second week of December, the air in Tampa turned crisp and golden, the kind of winter only Florida knows. Bright sun, sharp light, the illusion of warmth. masking something cold beneath. I spent my mornings pretending to nap by the window, while Monica hummed through her routine, brewing poison like it was kindness. She thought everything was unfolding perfectly, and in a way, it was just not the way she imagined. Her timeline was almost complete. She'd secured fake medical reports, drained my pension, forged signatures, and scheduled a mental competency hearing for December 18th. Once I was declared incompetent, she'd activate her power of attorney and sell the house. She believed I'd fade quietly into a memory care facility before the new year. What she didn't know was that every step she took was part of my own schedule, a plan as carefully designed as her deceit. I had 3 goals. First, collect undeniable proof. Done. Second, secure protection already in place. Third, let her expose herself in front of witnesses. For that, I needed the right audience. My lawyer, Laura Bishop, connected me with Detective Nora Hastings, a state investigator who handled elder fraud and exploitation cases. When I met her at a quiet cafe on Bayshore Boulevard, she spoke with the calm of someone who had seen monsters hide behind family smiles before. "Mr. Halston," she said, sliding a notepad across the table, "I reviewed the evidence you sent. Video, audio, lab reports. It's strong. But to make the arrest airtight, we need her on record attempting the fraud. You're comfortable letting her proceed?" I smiled. "Detective, I taught history for 40 years. I know how to let villains write their own downfall." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, we'll move when you give the signal." That night, I returned home to find Monica waiting with an envelope in her hand. "Good news," she said brightly. "Dr. Keller scheduled your evaluation for this Friday. Once it's over, we can make sure you're properly cared for." "Friday," I repeated. "That's soon." "The sooner the better," she said. "You'll feel safer once everything's handled." I smiled weakly. "You're a blessing, Monica." She touched my shoulder gently. "I just want what's best for you." When she left the room, I took the envelope she'd brought, medical release forms, and photographed every page. Each signature she'd forged looked almost perfect. Almost. I forwarded the images to Laura and to Detective Hastings. Both replied within minutes. "Keep playing along. Don't change anything. Hastings, we'll have eyes on the house by Friday morning." That night, I practiced. Yes, practiced. My voice slurred, my eyes unfocused, my sentences trailing off into confusion. The performance had to be flawless. Because if I failed, she'd win, and I'd vanish behind locked doors. Friday arrived. Monica woke me early, her tone brisk. "Big day today, Dad. Let's get you dressed." She picked out a sweater, even combed my hair, humming softly as she packed a folder into her purse. From my recliner, I watched her reflection in the mirror, the careful precision of someone who'd already written the ending of her story. She had no idea I'd rewritten it. Before we left, I opened my desk drawer and took out Helen's locket, the one she wore every day for 40 years. Inside was our wedding photo and a tiny flash drive hidden beneath the picture. It contained everything: audio files, video clips, financial records. I slipped it into my pocket. When we arrived at Dr. Keller's office, the waiting room smelled of disinfectant and deceit. He greeted Monica warmly, barely glancing at me. "Let's begin, shall we?" he said, motioning toward a chair. Monica sat beside me, pretending to be the weary caregiver. "Doctor, I'm really worried about him," she began. "He's been so disoriented lately. Sometimes he doesn't even know who I am." I stared at the floor, mumbling incoherently. Who are you?" Her hand brushed mine. "See?" she whispered. Keller smiled sympathetically. Classic signs of cognitive decline. For 30 minutes, they spoke about me, not to me. She described fake outbursts, imaginary confusion, and wandering episodes. Keller took notes dutifully. When he asked me to recall the date, I fumbled deliberately. Feb. 20. Something. He nodded gravely. "Moderate to severe impairment. I'll prepare the certification for memory care placement." Monica sighed in relief. "Thank you, doctor. I knew it was time." I mumbled, "Time? Time for what?" "Time for you to rest," she said softly. The perfect line for a villain's confession. Hidden in my pocket, the recorder captured every word. By the time we got home, she was glowing. "It went perfectly," she told Ethan on the phone. "The doctor's report will be ready Monday. After that, I'll handle the court forms. We're almost done." She didn't notice me sitting by the window, staring at the horizon with a quiet smile. That evening, I called Laura from my bedroom. "It's done. She thinks the papers are ready." "Good," Laura said. "Detective Hastings will be at your house on Christmas morning. Let her believe it's still on track. When she shows the commitment documents to your son, we'll step in." I exhaled. It's strange. I've waited months for this, and now that it's close, I almost feel sorry for her. "Don't," Laura replied. "She doesn't feel sorry for you." The next few days were a study in patience. Monica moved through the house like a queen preparing her throne. She printed property documents, made phone calls about listing options, and even spoke to a realtor about a potential buyer. On December 14th, I found a draft email she'd left open. "Once the sale closes, we'll transfer funds to our Sarasota account, February at the latest." That was the final piece I needed. By then, the fern by the window had withered to a brittle stem, a silent witness to her daily crimes. I almost laughed when she asked, "Should we throw that plant out?" "No," I said softly. "It's still useful." That night, I placed Helen's locket around my neck and whispered to her photo, "It's almost over, sweetheart. I'll make sure she never poisons anyone again." Outside, the Christmas lights from the neighbors' houses shimmered in the humid air, bright and deceitful, like the smile Monica wore every morning. She thought she was days away from owning my life. But in truth, she was standing at the edge of her own ruin. And by Christmas morning, I'd make sure she fell. December 15th, the day Monica thought she'd finally broken me. I woke before dawn and stared at the ceiling, the faint sound of waves brushing against the seawall outside. It was strangely peaceful, the kind of calm that comes before a storm you've already accepted. On the nightstand sat the mug she'd prepared the evening before. I lifted it, studied the faint white residue floating at the bottom, and smiled. This time, I drank it all. The bitterness burned down my throat, but I forced myself to finish every drop. If this plan was going to work, I had to look the part. I had to be the confused, drugged old man she'd created. By the time Monica came downstairs, I was already swaying slightly in my chair, eyelids heavy. "Morning, Dad," she said brightly, kissing the top of my head. "You're up early." I blinked slowly. "What day is it?" "Friday," she answered softly, watching my pupils like a scientist observing her experiment. "You have your appointment today, remember?" I mumbled something incoherent and nodded. She smiled, satisfied. "Good. Let's get you ready." She had no idea that inside my cardigan pocket, the recorder was already blinking red. The drive to Dr. Keller's office was a blur of light and motion. The sedatives kicked in halfway there, my body sluggish, my mouth dry, my heart pounding, with a strange mix of fear and fury. But beneath the fog, my mind stayed clear. I kept repeating to myself, "You're in control. Stay calm. Let her talk." Keller's office was tucked inside a beige medical plaza that smelled like antiseptic and desperation. The receptionist smiled kindly, the way people do when they believe you're already gone. "Good morning, Mr. Halston," Keller said, his voice smooth, practiced. "Let's have a seat." Monica guided me to the chair like a dutiful nurse. "He's been declining rapidly," she began. "Yesterday he thought Helen was still alive. He keeps accusing me of strange things." "Accusing you of what?" Keller asked, barely looking up from his notes. "Poisoning him," she said with a soft laugh. "Paranoia, obviously." They both smiled politely. I stared at the floor, mumbling nonsense. For 30 minutes, I gave the performance of my life. I forgot my name twice, called Keller Pastor, and tried to hand him my wallet when he asked for the date. He nodded sympathetically, making little noises of affirmation, while Monica dabbed her eyes with a tissue. "I'm trying my best," she said, voice trembling. "But he's not safe at home anymore. He wanders at night. Last week, he left the stove on." I slurred. That never happened." See? She interrupted quickly. He denies everything. Keller nodded. It's classic confabulation common in mid-stage dementia. He scribbled something on the clipboard. I'll prepare the certification for memory care placement. Monica squeezed my hand. Thank you, doctor. This means so much. I let my head droop forward, murmuring softly, Helen, my Helen. Who's Helen? Keller asked gently. Monica gave a sad smile. His late wife. He doesn't remember she passed. Keller sighed, signing the final page. I'll forward this report to the court. Once power of attorney is approved, you can begin the transition to care. Thank you, Monica whispered. The session ended with her leading me out like a child. See, Dad? That wasn't so bad, she said, tucking the folder under her arm. In the parking lot, the sunlight hit her face so calm, so triumphant, that I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. She had no idea she'd just narrated her own confession into my recorder. By the time we got home, my head was spinning from the medication. I collapsed into my recliner, still pretending to be half-dazed, while Monica called Ethan from the kitchen. It's official, she said, her voice soft and excited. Dr. Keller confirmed it. Severe impairment. We can move forward with the legal papers next week. She paused, listening. No, he didn't ask any questions. He just signed everything. We're almost there, Ethan. By January, he'll be in Clearwater and we can list the house. Another pause. Then, laughter. Yes, honey, I already talked to the realtor. We'll make at least $900,000 after closing. My blood ran cold, not from fear this time, but from a clarity so sharp it almost felt peaceful. They were both in on it. Ethan had let it happen. Maybe he didn't understand the full extent. Maybe he thought it was for my safety. But he'd let her lead him like a lamb to slaughter. My own son. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was past anger. I was focused. That evening, when Monica left to meet the notary, I transferred all the recordings, photos, and videos to 3 identical flash drives. I labeled them A, B, and C. Drive A went into the fireproof safe in my study. Drive B, I mailed to my brother Robert in Miami. Drive C, I slipped inside Helen's locket, the one Monica always thought was just sentimental jewelry. Then I wrote a letter to Detective Hastings, sealed in an envelope labeled, If I Disappear. Inside, I included a timeline of Monica's actions, copies of Dr. Keller's forged documents, and a note. She plans to commit me on January 5th. If I'm gone before then, check Clearwater Memory Care and my bank statements. There you'll find her crimes. I placed it in the top drawer of my desk. The next morning, Monica acted sweeter than ever. She made pancakes, brought me coffee, and asked if I wanted to decorate the tree together. Her voice was light, cheerful, dripping with the satisfaction of victory. You've been such a help to me, Dad, she said as we hung ornaments. It's been hard, taking care of everything, but it's worth it. You'll see. Soon, everything will be peaceful. I looked at her, the young woman my son had once loved, the one who used to bring Helen flowers on her birthday, and wondered how long she'd been capable of such darkness. Peaceful, I repeated softly. Yes, that sounds about right. Later that afternoon, I stepped outside to breathe the December air. The sky was a clean, glassy blue, and for the first time in months, I felt no fog, no confusion, just the quiet certainty of justice drawing near. Monica's laughter floated from inside the house, light and careless. She didn't know it yet, but every smile, every lie, every poisoned cup had already been catalogued, time-stamped, preserved. She thought I was the one slipping away. But in truth, she was the one vanishing one, recording at a time. Christmas was 10 days away, and on that morning, surrounded by my family, she would learn what it felt like to be truly seen. Because when a liar builds her world on falsehoods, the cruelest punishment isn't prison. It's truth spoken clearly, publicly, and inescapably. And I was going to make sure she heard every word of it. Christmas morning came wrapped in sunlight and silence. The house smelled of cinnamon and deceit. Monica had woken early, humming carols under her breath as she set the table with perfect precision, silver cutlery, red napkins folded into little poinsettias. From the recliner, I watched her move about the kitchen like a conductor, before a grand finale. She had no idea the music was about to end. "Coffee's ready, Dad," she called sweetly. I smiled faintly. "You never forget my coffee." "Of course not," she said, sliding the mug into my hands. "Can't start your day without it." The surface rippled, catching the light. I lifted it to my lips, pretending to sip. "Tastes different today," I murmured. She froze for half a second, then recovered. "Just a new blend," she said lightly. I let my eyes droop, my head tilt back. "Strong," I whispered. Her smile returned. "That's the idea." I poured half the drink into the fern beside my chair when she turned away. The poor thing was almost gone now, brittle, brown, and poisoned, like every illusion she'd built around me. By 10 o'clock, Ethan and Lila arrived. My son's face carried the weight of someone trying to balance guilt and denial. He hugged me gently. "Merry Christmas, Dad." "Morning, son," I said softly. Lila handed me a small box, wrapped in gold paper. "Mom said this is your favorite cologne." I smiled, touched by her innocence. "Thank you, sweetheart." We gathered around the tree. Monica laughed a little too loudly, offering everyone pastries, smiling as though the world adored her. When Ethan complimented the decorations, she said, "I just wanted today to be perfect." And it would be. Just not for her. At 11:20, after gifts were opened and laughter filled the air, Monica leaned toward Ethan. "Can we talk for a minute? In private?" He followed her into the kitchen. I waited 30 seconds, then stood and followed, careful to stay just beyond the doorway. The recorder was running in my pocket, as always. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I didn't want to do this today, but the doctor says we can't delay. Your father's not safe at home anymore." "What are you talking about?" Ethan asked, frowning. "He had another episode Tuesday night. Wandered outside in his robe. The neighbor saw him." "That doesn't sound like him." "It's getting worse," she pressed, pulling a folder from her bag. "Look, these are Dr. Keller's reports, and the commitment papers for Clearwater Memory Care. They'll hold his room until January 5th. We can sign today." Ethan flipped through the papers. "Mom, this seems extreme." "Ethan," she said softly, hand on his arm. "He's slipping away. This is the kindest thing we can do." That was my cue. "What kind thing is that exactly?" I asked, stepping into the kitchen. Both of them turned. Monica's face went pale. "Dad, you should be resting." "I've done plenty of resting," I said. "Maybe it's time you did some explaining." "Please," she said quickly, glancing at Ethan. "He's confused again. This happens when he's tired." "Confused?" I reached into my cardigan and pulled out the small recorder. "Let's see how confused I sound on this." I pressed play. Her voice filled the room, cold and clear. "Once he's declared incompetent, we'll sell the house. The court will thank us for taking such good care of poor, confused Richard." The words hung in the air like smoke. Ethan blinked, speechless. "Dad, what is this?" he asked. "I think it's called the truth," I said quietly. Monica's lips trembled, but she forced a laugh. "That's not real. It's edited. He's been recording random things. He doesn't know what." I pressed another button. "Dr. Keller says the paperwork will be ready Monday. Once he's in Clearwater, we'll be free." Ethan took a step back. "Monica?" Her composure cracked. "You don't understand," she said, her voice rising. "He's been impossible, accusing me of stealing, of poisoning him." "Funny you should mention that," I interrupted. I took out a small glass jar from my pocket. The label marked Sample Number 3, November 10. Inside, faint white residue clung to the bottom. "Dr. Cruz tested my blood. Zolpidem and clonazepam every single day for months. Same substances found in these samples. Your wife's been drugging me, Ethan." His face drained of color. "Monica, is this true?" She shook her head violently. "No, he's delusional. He needs help, can't you see?" "Stop lying," I said sharply, the anger finally breaking through. "I have 18 videos of you crushing pills into my coffee. 18, Monica." Her voice faltered. You spied on me?" "I survived you," I said. The room went dead silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Lila peeked from the doorway, wide-eyed. "Mom!" Why are you crying? Monica turned, voice cracking. Go to your room, honey. No, Ethan said softly. She stays. He looked at me then, eyes filled with something between shame and horror. Dad, I didn't know. I swear I didn't. I know, son, I said gently. But now you do. Outside, tires crunched against the gravel driveway. A car door slammed, then came a knock, firm, official. Monica's head snapped toward the sound. Who's that? Detective Hastings, I said. She's been waiting for your performance. When the detective stepped inside, Monica's expression shattered completely. Monica Harper Halston, Hastings said, badge in hand. You're under arrest for elder abuse, attempted fraud, and poisoning. This is insane, Monica screamed, backing away. You can't arrest me. I've been caring for him for months. Caring? I repeated quietly. You nearly erased me. Hastings stepped forward, cuffing her wrists. We have video footage, audio recordings, blood test results, and forged medical documents in your handwriting. You might want to save your breath for your attorney. Monica's voice broke into sobs. Ethan, please tell them. Tell them I was helping. Ethan looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. Helping yourself, maybe. When Hastings led her toward the front door, she turned to me, eyes blazing. You think you've won, old man? You can't live alone. You'll need me. I met her glare calmly. I don't need poison to keep me company. The door slammed behind her, leaving a hollow echo that seemed to strip the air clean. For a long time, none of us spoke. Ethan sank into a chair, head in his hands. Lila stood by my side, clutching my sleeve. Grandpa, she whispered, were you really sick? I knelt slowly, meeting her eyes. No, sweetheart. I was just pretending so the truth could come out. She nodded, silent tears shining on her cheeks. Detective Hastings returned from outside, clipboard in hand. She's in custody. We'll process the evidence tonight. Dr. Keller will be questioned next. His license won't survive this. Thank you, I said quietly. Don't thank me, Mr. Halston, she replied. You did what most victims can't. You fought back. As she left, Ethan looked up at me, his voice cracking. Dad, I'm sorry. I believed her. I let her convince me you were losing your mind. I placed a hand on his shoulder. She was very good at lying, but lies can't survive light. Outside, the unmarked police car pulled away, taillights fading into the afternoon sun. The house was quiet again, but this time, it wasn't the silence of fear, it was freedom. I sank back into my recliner, feeling the weight of months lift from my chest. The fern by the window caught a breeze and rustled faintly, its last brown leaf falling to the floor. Guess you did your job too, I murmured. Ethan looked over. What's that? Nothing, son, I said, closing my eyes. Just talking to an old witness. The fire crackled softly. Outside, church bells rang somewhere down the street. And for the first time in 18 months, I felt safe enough to listen. The day after Christmas, the house felt like a shell that had finally exhaled. Sunlight poured through the curtains, washing the living room in gold. The same room where I'd once sat, half-drugged, half-conscious, now smelled of fresh air and freedom. The poison fern was gone. Lila had replaced it with a small poinsettia, a simple red ribbon tied around the pot. Ethan made coffee that morning. Real coffee. Strong and bitter, the way I used to drink it before Monica came into my life like a wolf wearing an angel's grin. We sat together at the kitchen table, the quiet between us thick, but no longer cold. I called the bank, Ethan said finally. They're restoring your accounts. Detective Hastings already froze the transfers to that fake care company. Looks like she was draining your pension straight into her personal account. I nodded slowly. I'm not surprised. He looked down at his hands. Dad, I don't know how to apologize for all this. Don't, I said softly. Guilt doesn't rebuild anything. Just promise me you'll raise Lila to see through people like her. He nodded, eyes glistening. I will. By mid-afternoon, the doorbell rang. Detective Hastings stood there, her expression both tired and satisfied. Mr. Halston, she said, handing me a folder. It's official. Monica Harper Halston was charged this morning with elder abuse, attempted fraud, forgery, and administering controlled substances without consent. Dr. Keller's in custody too. I took the folder. Inside were statements, lab results, and a copy of the police report. Hastings leaned against the doorway. We also found the Sarasota condo paperwork in her car trunk. She used your pension funds for the down payment. You'll get every cent back once the court processes restitution. Will she go to prison? Ethan asked quietly. Hastings nodded. 5 to 7 years, more if the DA pushes for intent to harm. I exhaled slowly. That's not revenge, that's balance. She smiled faintly. Balance is justice that learned patience. Before leaving, she handed me one more document, a letter from the district attorney's office. They're also recommending you for a state awareness program on elder protection, she said. Your case might change policy, Mr. Halston. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I was just trying to stay alive. Sometimes, she said, that's enough to change the law. After she left, I went into Helen's old study and sat by her desk. Her picture still stood beside the lamp, her smile eternal, her eyes bright with that old mix of kindness and steel. We did it, sweetheart, I whispered. Your house, your name, it's safe. But safe wasn't enough. Not anymore. That evening, I called Laura Bishop, my lawyer. Laura, I want to finalize the deed transfer, I said. To who? She asked. The Florida Alzheimer's and Elder Justice Foundation. Sell the house and donate every dollar in Helen's name. There was silence on the line. Richard, that's nearly $1 million. I know, I said. Helen spent her life teaching people how to see truth. This house, everything it stood for, should keep doing that. Let it fight the darkness she saved me from. Laura's voice softened. You sure? Absolutely. I already have somewhere to go. The next week, I moved into Bayview Haven, a quiet senior community just outside Sarasota. The rooms were small but bright, facing the water. There was a library, a piano, and a group of residents who met every Thursday to play chess and share stories over tea. On my first night there, I slept without checking the locks twice. Ethan and Lila visited every Sunday. Lila brought books and questions. She'd sit cross-legged on the floor, her brow furrowed in concentration, as I helped her with history homework. One afternoon she asked, Grandpa, how did you know she was lying? I smiled. Because lies are like smoke, sweetheart. They can fill a room and choke you for a while, but eventually, they clear. The truth always stays. By March, Monica pleaded guilty. In exchange for a shorter sentence, she turned over emails, bank statements, and recordings that implicated Dr. Keller in multiple cases. The courtroom was packed the day she was sentenced. She stood in her orange jumpsuit, trembling. Judge Raymond read her crimes aloud, each word a nail in the coffin of her carefully crafted image. Mrs. Halston, he said, you drugged, defrauded, and attempted to permanently institutionalize your father-in-law for financial gain. This was not care. This was cruelty disguised as compassion. The court sentences you to 5 years in state prison and orders restitution of $62,000 to the victim. Monica looked at me once before they led her away. Her eyes were red, her voice hoarse. You ruined my life, she whispered. I shook my head. You did that yourself. I just stopped you from ruining mine. Ethan filed for divorce the next day. Lila stayed with him full-time. By summer, the Florida newspapers had run my story under the headline, Retired Teacher Outsmarts Daughter-in-Law in $1M Elder Fraud Plot. Letters began arriving at Bayview Haven from strangers, people who'd faced the same kind of slow, invisible abuse. Some had lost everything. Some just wanted to say thank you. I kept every letter in a box under my bed. One afternoon, Detective Hastings visited the community center to speak at a seminar about elder safety. She asked me to join her on stage. I'm not a hero, I told the audience. I'm a teacher. And this, I gestured to the crowd. This is still a classroom. The first lesson is simple. Silence is poison. Speak, even if no one believes you at first. Speak until the truth has no room left to hide. When the applause faded, she leaned over and said, You know, Richard, you could have been a detective. I chuckled. No, detective, I'm just an old man who finally learned to read people again. That night, I sat on my porch at Bayview Haven, the sea breeze cool against my face. Lila was inside, playing the piano Helen once loved. The melody floated through the open window, soft, gentle, alive. The horizon shimmered pink and gold as the sun sank into the gulf. I took a slow sip of coffee, black, honest coffee, and smiled. For a moment, I thought about the past year, the lies, the fear, the humiliation, and felt none of the bitterness I expected. Only gratitude. Gratitude for the truth, for the people who helped me find it, and for the peace that came after the storm. I closed my eyes and whispered, "We made it, Helen." Somewhere beyond the waves, the wind seemed to answer. And that's when I realized something simple. Something I'd been too angry to see before. Revenge doesn't heal. Justice does. Because the sweetest revenge isn't watching someone fall, it's standing tall, afterward, still kind, still free, still yourself. And as the night settled over Florida, I promised myself one last thing. I would never let silence win again.